Don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts or story in the comments, and subscribe to our latest stories. Before I start, tell me where you are watching me from. I wonder which cities and towns will join me in this memory that will follow me for years. I remember the day as if it had etched itself into my memory with sharper edges than most. The air was still that morning, almost hesitant to move, and the sun had barely risen over the rooftops. I was in my kitchen, leaning against the counter, sipping a lukewarm cup of coffee, trying to collect my thoughts before the day started in earnest. My son, Michael, shuffled into the room. His eyes looked heavier than usual, and I could see the exhaustion in the slump of his shoulders and the slow drag of his feet. "Morning, Mom," he murmured, his voice soft but strained. He's always been a quiet boy, but lately, the quietness had a different weight to it, as if he was carrying the kind of tiredness that wasn't just physical, but emotional. I set my cup down and watched him. I didn't ask him immediately how he was. Sometimes, questions can feel like a weight themselves. Instead, I waited, giving him the space to settle, to breathe in the familiarity of home, even if only for a few minutes. Finally, he sat down at the kitchen table, resting his elbows on its worn surface. I could see the faint dark circles under his eyes and the slight tremor in his hands. I didn't need him to say anything, his body spoke volumes. I slid a glass of water toward him. "Drink," I said simply. No pressure, no probing. Just presence. He took it without a word, and that in itself felt like a small victory. We spent the morning in a quiet rhythm. I washed the dishes, he fiddled with his phone, occasionally glancing up to meet my eyes. Then, just as the sunlight shifted across the table, he spoke. "Mom, I don't know if I can keep doing this," he said, almost whispering, and for a moment, the room seemed to shrink around us. I paused. I wanted to give him a safe space, a place where he could unravel without fear of judgment. I pulled out a chair and sat across from him, leaning in slightly so he wouldn't feel the distance. "Keep doing what?" I asked gently, even though I had an inkling of what he meant. "Everything," he said, his voice barely louder than a sigh. "Work, life, this constant pressure to always be okay. And talking to you, every day. I love you, Mom, but sometimes I feel like I'm drowning, and I can't tell you without feeling guilty." His confession hit me like a sudden gust of wind, chilling and revealing all at once. I reached across the table, resting my hand over his. My own hand felt small compared to the tension in his. "Michael," I said, "you don't have to carry it alone. You don't have to keep up appearances for me. I'm not here to judge or scold. I'm here to listen, and I'm here to help you find your way through it, even if it's just one day at a time." He looked up, meeting my eyes for the first time that morning, and I saw something shift. A flicker of relief, a fragment of trust. He swallowed hard and nodded, the tension in his shoulders softening slightly. I guess I just need someone to hear me without me feeling like I'm letting them down," he admitted, and I felt a lump in my throat, because I understood. I had been there myself many times in life, balancing responsibilities and pretending to be unshakable while the weight of the world quietly crushed me. We talked for hours that day. It wasn't a grand, cinematic conversation filled with dramatic revelations. No, it was simple, unadorned, honest. He spoke about work pressures, the isolation he sometimes felt, and the constant expectations that seemed to follow him like shadows. I listened, offering gentle affirmations, sharing small pieces of my own experiences, the lessons I had learned through years of navigating my own struggles. Occasionally, we would lapse into silence, and those silences were just as important as the words. They were spaces where trust and understanding grew quietly, naturally. By the time the afternoon light softened into the warm glow of early evening, something had shifted between us. There was a calmness in him, a subtle lift of weight, and a renewed sense that he wasn't alone in the fight. He smiled, small but genuine, and for a fleeting moment, it was like seeing him as a boy again, unburdened, full of potential and hope. That night, as he left the kitchen to retreat to his room, he turned and said, "Thanks, Mom. I don't know what I'd do without you." And I watched him go, realizing that sometimes, the deepest bonds we form aren't through grand gestures or monumental moments, they're through daily acts of presence, patience, and the courage to be honest, even when it's hard. I stayed by the window for a while, watching him disappear into the quiet house. The streets were calm, the sun had set completely, and a soft breeze carried the faint scent of autumn leaves through the open window. In that moment, I understood that my role as a mother wasn't just to guide or correct, it was to witness, to hold space, and to remind my son that even in the most exhausting, difficult moments, he was never truly alone. And as I sipped the now cold coffee, I realized that in helping him find his voice, I had also found a deeper understanding of myself, a reminder that love, in its quiet, patient form, is one of the most profound forces we can ever experience. That evening, after Michael had gone up to his room, I found myself lingering in the living room, the soft hum of the heater filling the silence. The quiet was comforting, but my mind kept drifting back to him, to the weight I could see pressing on his shoulders. I realized then that my role in his life wasn't something that could be neatly defined by rules or schedules. It wasn't about meals, or laundry, or reminders, it was about presence, being there even when he didn't ask, and sometimes even when he thought he didn't need me. The next morning, I woke to the familiar sound of his phone alarm. Michael's schedule was relentless, and yet he never complained about the early hours. I made him breakfast, a simple one, eggs and toast, and when he came down, he seemed quieter than usual. I could see the tension had returned, though less severe than before. It's funny how quickly life can shift, isn't it? One moment, relief; the next, fatigue creeping back like a slow tide. But I decided not to ask him anything immediately. Instead, I poured him a cup of coffee and set it beside his plate. "Morning," I said gently. "I made your favorite." He gave me a small, grateful smile, and I felt a little tug in my chest, knowing that sometimes these small gestures mattered more than grand speeches. We sat together in silence for a few minutes, the kind of quiet that didn't feel heavy but rather like a shared understanding. Then he spoke, almost in passing. "Mom, I hate that I need to talk to you every day. I feel like I'm burdening you." I reached across the table and placed my hand on his. "Michael, you're not burdening me. Life is heavy sometimes, yes, but sharing it doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. And it reminds me why I'm here, why I love being your mother. Don't ever think that needing someone is a burden." He looked down at our hands, the lines of worry softening slightly. "I know, it's just that some days, it's so much. Work is exhausting, and then there's everything else, life, bills, expectations. And I just want to disappear sometimes." I squeezed his hand gently. "I understand that feeling. More than you might think. But disappearing doesn't solve anything. Facing it, even bit by bit, is how we grow. And you won't have to do it alone. Not while I'm here." We spent the morning together, going through small, ordinary tasks, the kind of things that often go unnoticed but shape the rhythm of our lives. Folding laundry, watering plants, organizing a few papers on his desk. Each activity was mundane on its own, yet they became moments of connection. Michael would occasionally talk about his day, about people at work, the minor triumphs and setbacks. I listened. I asked questions. I offered advice sparingly, letting him lead the conversation. It was during one of those pauses, when he had gone to make himself another cup of coffee, that I realized something profound. This wasn't about solving his problems. It wasn't about giving him answers or fixing his life. It was about creating a space where he could breathe, where his struggles could be acknowledged without judgment, where he could feel seen. And in doing so, I realized I was learning about patience and empathy in ways I hadn't anticipated. Later that afternoon, as the sun filtered through the living room blinds, Michael came back from his walk. He looked more relaxed, the tension in his shoulders eased. "Mom," he said quietly, "thanks for letting me just be. For not making me explain everything perfectly." I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through me that had nothing to do with the sunlight. "That's what mothers are for," I said softly. "To remind you that you can be exactly who you are, even on the roughest days. No explanations needed." He nodded, and for a moment, we simply sat together, the quiet between us filled with unspoken understanding. I realized then that this daily ritual, these talks, these shared silences, was shaping both of us. He was learning to trust, to unburden himself without shame, and I was learning the depth of my own capacity to love and support. As evening approached, he prepared to leave for a late shift at work. He turned to me at the door. "Mom, I don't say it enough, but I'm grateful. I really am. For all of it." I reached up and ruffled his hair lightly, a gesture from his childhood that never failed to make him smile. Michael, every day I'm grateful too. For you, for these moments, for the trust we share. Never forget that. After he left, the house felt quieter than usual, but it wasn't an empty silence. It was the calm after a storm, the kind that leaves room for reflection and understanding. I sat down at the window again, watching the shadows lengthen across the street, thinking about how fragile yet resilient we are. How much strength it takes to carry the weight of life and yet seek comfort in another's presence. And I realized that these conversations, these small yet significant acts of sharing, were building a foundation not just for him, but for both of us. That night, as I went to bed, I felt a quiet satisfaction, a sense of purpose renewed. I knew tomorrow would bring new challenges, new moments of fatigue and doubt, but also new opportunities for connection. And somehow, knowing that we were facing it together made all the difference. The next few days passed in a rhythm that felt almost ritualistic. Every morning, Michael and I would share breakfast, talk briefly about plans for the day, and then go our separate ways, yet always return to that evening ritual of conversation. I noticed subtle changes in him. His smiles were a little more genuine, his posture slightly less burdened, though the exhaustion in his eyes never fully left. It was as if he carried a weight invisible to the world, but one I had grown accustomed to seeing, acknowledging, and easing, even in small ways. One evening, as the sky turned a soft amber and the wind whispered through the trees outside, Michael came into the kitchen looking unusually contemplative. He didn't speak immediately, just stood by the doorway, hands in his pockets, shoulders slightly hunched. I was washing the dishes, the gentle clinking of porcelain filling the quiet room. I glanced at him and smiled softly. "Long day?" I asked. He nodded, a small sigh escaping him. "Yeah, it's just, sometimes I feel like I'm moving through life on autopilot, Mom. Like I'm awake, but not really feeling it." I dried my hands and walked over, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "I know that feeling," I said gently. "Life can become a series of motions, especially when you're tired and carrying so much. But recognizing it is the first step. It means you're awake enough to notice, and that matters." He looked at me, his eyes searching mine, and for a moment, I saw the vulnerability that he rarely allowed anyone to witness. "I don't want to burden you, Mom, but some nights, I just feel lost. Like I'm constantly trying to catch up with myself, and I can't." I led him to the living room and sat down beside him. The couch sagged comfortably under our weight, and the soft glow of the lamp created a cocoon of warmth around us. "Michael, you're never a burden. Sharing your struggles doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. And letting someone in, letting someone see the real you, that's courage. It's something rare, something beautiful." He leaned back, staring at the ceiling for a moment. "I just don't know how to handle it sometimes. I feel like I should be stronger, like I should have all the answers, but I don't. I have nothing sometimes, just exhaustion." I nodded, understanding completely. Strength isn't about never feeling weak. It's about showing up even when you do. About reaching out when you need support. And every time you talk to me, every time you share even a fraction of what you carry, that's strength. That's the kind of strength the world rarely acknowledges, but it's the kind that matters most. He took a deep breath, and I could see the tension in his jaw easing slightly. I never realized how much just talking to someone can help. I mean, I knew it intellectually, but feeling it, it's different. It's like a weight lifts, even just a little. I smiled, my heart swelling with both pride and empathy. Exactly. And it's not about solving everything. It's about being seen, being understood, and knowing you're not alone in the struggle. That's enough sometimes. It really is. We stayed like that for a long time, speaking in fragments, sharing silences, laughing quietly at memories, and sometimes just sitting together, letting the warmth of the room and the familiarity of our bond speak for itself. I could see him relaxing, the lines of worry softening, even if just for a moment. Later that night, after he went to his room, I sat by the window with a blanket draped over my shoulders. The streets outside were quiet, the occasional car passing by breaking the stillness. I thought about how life had a way of testing us, of layering responsibilities and pressures on our shoulders without warning. And yet, in those moments of honesty and connection, I realized something profound. We were learning from each other. He was learning to share, to trust, to allow himself to be vulnerable, and I was learning to listen, to witness, and to love without conditions. The following days were similar yet subtly different. Michael began opening up more readily, sharing his frustrations and his small victories with a new clarity. He would recount minor interactions at work that had irritated or inspired him, or talk about books he was reading or music he had discovered. Each conversation, each shared moment, became a thread weaving us closer together, creating a tapestry of trust and understanding. One particularly quiet evening, as the sky turned dusky purple and the first stars appeared, Michael said something that made me pause. "Mom, I think I'm starting to understand myself better. Not fully, of course, but in pieces. And I think talking to you, every day, is helping me find the missing parts." I reached out and held his hand, feeling the warmth, the pulse of life and vulnerability. "Michael, that's all anyone can ask for. Understanding yourself doesn't happen all at once. It's a journey, and every step matters. And remember, I'll be here, every day, as long as you need me." He smiled, a small, sincere smile, and it felt like a ray of sunlight piercing through the clouds of his exhaustion. "Thanks, Mom. I really mean it. I don't know what I'd do without you." And in that moment, I realized something even more important than the comfort I gave him. I realized that in helping him find his voice, in offering him patience and understanding, I had also discovered new strength in myself, a quiet resilience and a deeper capacity for empathy and love. It was a reminder that relationships, especially the ones we hold closest, are never one-sided. They shape us, teach us, and reflect our own humanity back to us in ways we often don't expect. As I sat there, gazing out at the night sky, I felt a sense of calm and fulfillment. The journey was far from over, and the challenges were still real, but the connection we had nurtured, the shared moments, the honesty, the understanding, had created a foundation strong enough to face whatever came next. Days turned into weeks, and the rhythm of our mornings and evenings became a comforting constant. Michael still carried his exhaustion, still faced the pressures of work and life, but there was a noticeable change in him. He moved with a little more ease, smiled a little more freely, and carried a subtle lightness in his voice that had been absent before. It wasn't that his struggles disappeared, far from it, but the bond we had strengthened allowed him to face them with a sense of support he hadn't fully known before. One afternoon, I found myself sitting in the garden, the late spring sun warming my face. Michael joined me, carrying 2 mugs of tea, his eyes tired but softer than usual. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the garden sway gently in the breeze, listening to the faint sounds of birds and distant traffic. It was in these quiet, unremarkable moments that I realized the true essence of connection. It wasn't about grand gestures or monumental breakthroughs, it was about consistency, presence, and the willingness to share life's small pieces, even when they seemed insignificant. "I was thinking," Michael said after a long pause, "about how much we talk every day. And I realized, it's not just me who benefits from it." He handed me my mug with a small, shy smile. "I think you've been healing too, in a way." I looked at him, surprised by the insight. "I suppose, yes. I didn't realize it until now, but being here for you, listening to you, sharing these moments, it's given me a sense of purpose and perspective I didn't know I was missing." He nodded slowly, as if weighing his words. "It's funny how life works. We think we're the ones helping others, but sometimes, the ones we care for end up helping us just as much." I smiled, feeling warmth spread through me. "Exactly. That's the beauty of these relationships, Michael. It's not a one-way street. Love, patience, understanding, they flow both ways, and in the process, they shape us." We sat quietly for a while longer, sipping our tea and observing the subtle movements of the world around us. The evening light cast long shadows across the garden, soft and forgiving, and the air smelled faintly of fresh blooms and earth. I realized how rare these moments were, how easy it is to take them for granted, and how profoundly they could leave an imprint on our hearts. Later that evening, Michael came to me in the kitchen, his expression thoughtful. "Mom, I want to thank you. Not just for listening, or helping me when I'm tired, but for showing me that it's okay to lean on someone. That I don't have to carry everything alone." I reached out and held his hand, feeling the familiar warmth and trust that had grown between us. "Michael, you don't have to thank me. It's what families do, they share the load, support each other, and remind one another that no one has to face life's challenges in isolation. I'm proud of you, of your courage, and of the person you're becoming, step by step. He gave me a quiet nod, his eyes reflecting a depth of gratitude and understanding that words alone could never capture. And in that moment, I realized how much we had both grown through this journey. The daily conversations, the shared silences, the moments of vulnerability, they weren't just coping mechanisms. They were bridges, connecting two hearts across the challenges of life, weaving trust, understanding, and love into the fabric of our relationship. As night fell and the stars began to appear, I reflected on the months we had spent nurturing this bond. The weight of life's demands hadn't vanished, but it had become bearable because we faced it together. I understood now that true emotional connection doesn't erase difficulties, it provides the strength to endure them, the courage to speak honestly, and the comfort of knowing someone is always there, no matter what. Before going to bed that night, I peeked into Michael's room. He was sitting at his desk, quietly reading, the soft lamplight casting a golden glow around him. I smiled softly, feeling a sense of completion, not in the sense of an ending, but in the understanding that our journey together had reached a new depth. We had discovered resilience, trust, and a profound mutual respect that would carry us through the years to come. And as I turned off the lights and walked back to my own room, I felt a gentle peace settle over me. Life would always have its trials, and fatigue would always visit him and me, but we had learned the power of presence, the importance of listening, and the quiet strength found in simply being there for one another. In nurturing him, I had discovered new layers of myself. In his openness, I had witnessed the beauty of vulnerability. And together, we had built something enduring, a connection that would continue to grow, resilient against the trials of life, grounded in love, understanding, and shared humanity. As I drifted off to sleep, I knew that tomorrow, and every day after, we would continue to talk, to share, and to support one another, finding meaning in the quiet moments, strength in our connection, and comfort in the knowledge that neither of us would ever face life's challenges alone again.